My name is AV Neryah, and I guide people to liberation, to enlightenment, to the understanding of themselves through the written and oral word, and also through presence and silence. So the yearning for liberation only arises because there's something that seems to be missing. We seem to be bound, we seem to be confined. If we did not have that feeling of confinement, of bondage, there would be no need for liberation. Therefore, liberation is a yearning that arises due to the feeling of being bound and confined. They are opposites in the same dualistic spectrum. Someone feels bound and they want to be free from that bondage. So they need to go to the other extreme of freedom. But as long as bondage exists, freedom, or the concept of freedom, or the yearning for freedom will exist. When you are free from both bondage and freedom. When you are liberated from both liberation and bondage, because they are dualistic interplay, interdependent, that coexist. Nirvana, liberation, enlightenment, self-realization, mananasa, mukti, moksha, satchitananda, freedom, all these are concepts. They are important concepts initially because they give you a window to go beyond all this illusion of suffering and separateness. So in that regard, they are very important. Without them, you will believe that everything you see in life, all the mundane activities, all the perceptions through the five senses, all the thoughts through the mind, are all that exists. So they're like a bridge, a vehicle that allows you to see or peek a little bit beyond the veil. Having said so, they are just another subtle layer of conceptualization that you eventually have to transcend. To me, liberation is everything. There is no life without liberation. There is no joy without liberation. There is no freedom without liberation. But at some point, even liberation is left behind because it's a concept. We are interested in the raw, direct experience, not in a sort of non-conceptual experience, not in concepts. So they have a lot of significance for me, but we understand that at some point they're just left behind. They are the training wheels in a bicycle. We carry those concepts with ourselves up to a point, and then we leave them behind. And we find exactly what they're pointing to. As the saying goes, we should never mistake the finger for the moon. The finger points to the moon, but it's not the moon. Liberation, mananasa, moksha, mukti, self-realization, so on, they point to something, but they are not that something. So even though they are important, they're not the be-all and end all of everything. So even though they are significant, eventually they're left behind. In many non-dual circles, the primary idea is that you are already enlightened, that you are already the self. And this is not entirely false, but it's not entirely true either. If you get out of your house and it's daytime, yet the sky is pervaded by numerous clouds, you will say, the sun is already here. That's true, but yet it's still raining and it's still a dark, windy, cloudy day. So just because the presence of the sun is an undeniable fact, it does not mean that you'll have a nice, sunny, radiant day. In the same way, just because there's already a treasure beneath the floor of your house, if you don't know about it, if you don't excavate it, if you don't dig it up, you will keep poor, you will stay poor, you will remain poor for the rest of your life. So yes, you are already the self, but do you feel like that though? Is that your living experience? Do your emotions express themselves based on that? Does your mind express itself based on that? Do you, through your whole life, do you manifest that understanding 24/7? Are you a living expression of that? Usually the problem is the following. And in New Advaita, or sometimes the satsang-based movements, they neglect the need for practice because it's dualistic. And it's true, practice is dualistic. There's a practitioner and object of practice. Having said so, we are talking about non-dual practice. Non-dual practice is so different from dualistic practice because non-dual practice does not imply that something is missing that you need to get or you need to pay attention to some object. It's just about reposing or resting on your own source, on your own being. Just being, not doing anything. Turning the arrow of attention back to yourself. Resting in your own awareness, in your own being. So this is not a practice. It's a practiceless practice. And it's very much required. Awakening to something does not entail being the living expression of that something. It just means that you have a peak and then you come back to the default state. Something can change, but fundamentally speaking, you will still live your life based on conditioning. So on New Advaita, on these non-dual circles, you know you are the self. That's great. You awaken to awareness. That's beautiful. And then what? Are you that living expression? No, that requires practice. That requires removing the deep-rooted conditioning, the vasanas, that which makes you come back to a more default state. And that's why I continuously hear, oh, I had an enlightening experience. And then the ego came back. In true non-dual teachings, you awaken to who you actually are, yes, and then you continuously celebrate, you continuously acknowledge consciously that recognition over and over and over again, until it becomes more real, more tangible, more palpable, more undeniable than your reality of being a human being. The pathless path is almost like a paradox. How can it be a path and yet pathless at the same time? Usually, a path means that there is an agent based on a self that has an autobiographical narrative that goes through a journey from ignorance to enlightenment within space-time. That's our perspective from the mind. The pathless path means that what you are always that, from the very beginning. So you undergo a whole journey of discovering that you've always been from the beginning that which you are seeking. And that's why it turns into a pathless path, because you go all this pathway and then you realize, oh, wait a second, I've never went anywhere. I did not move. I did not seek anything. This was just a play in consciousness. All these movements, all these seekings, all these longings, they were required to me to find out that they were never required in the first place. The pathless path is so important, because otherwise you will not realize the end of seeking. A path entails that there is someone that goes through a journey seeking something. The pathless path is the insight and the discovery that you are the one you are actually seeking. The place from where the seeking comes, it's already where you want to be. Science and non-dual spirituality, they are very distant as of right now, because science is trying to study and understand the objective world. It's like you're dreaming and you're a scientist in the dream using dream tools, trying to find out something about being awakened. The truth. Just not possible. Science needs to grow and expand so much more to be able to understand the profound depths of spirituality. Having said so, there are few people, few scientists, few explorers of consciousness who are taking the next step in uplifting science to a much deeper understanding. There's definitely an innate intelligence at play in the universe. This is not just random chaos. This intelligence manifests both in the macrocosms, in the whole universe, and also in yourself. Denying this intelligence, denying the sacredness of nature, denying the beauty of the intelligent design is like being in a dry, inhospitable desert. And you're dying to just have a little sip of water, and you cannot find it anywhere. Science is still looking for water in that desert, not understanding that just behind them, there's just a beautiful oasis with all the joy, all the fresh water that they could ever desire. I feel like there's important steps to be taken by the scientific community. And as of right now, the consensus is definitely not in the direction of spirituality. It was much more in that direction like 100 years ago, with the advent of quantum mechanics and so on. Having said so, those who actually pursue science to its deepest roots will find out about the nature of emptiness, the nature of consciousness, all the same types of discoveries that spirituality has found. If an asteroid comes to our planet and destroys the whole thing, and yet we manage to save a few babies, and they're sent into some other habitable planet, and they build up a civilization there, eventually they will discover the same scientific truths we've discovered here, and the same spiritual truths we've discovered here, because they are not a property of someone. They are potentially something that anyone can discover wherever you are in the universe. Cannot say the same for religions. There will be no Christianity, no Buddhism, no Hinduism in that new planet, because all the history has been erased. No one knows anything. But awareness, emptiness, your true being, your nature, this will all be discovered. All the nuclear force, gravity, electromagnetic spectrum, all that stuff will be all discovered as well. These are fundamental truths, both universally and absolutely speaking, and objectively speaking. They are different, but they are prevalent throughout the whole universe. Intelligent design, denying intelligent design, is walking around with a blindfold, trying to find your way through the cave, not believing that you've never been in a cave. You're wide open against just a rock. That's not the way to live. No. You can find the intelligent design in yourself, calling for you to discover itself. It's like this, it can manifest as grace in you, like just calling you, and you can just deny it, until one day, somehow life slaps you in the face, pushes you over the cliff, makes you see that there's more to life than this stuff. I just want to point out something. When things do not go your way, when there's a lot of turbulence, when there's a lot of issues going on, you may start to question the validity of intelligent design. You may start to question the power of grace, that if there's some higher intelligence guiding you or something. It's precisely in those moments that you have to surrender and find out that you are exactly where you need to be. You are exactly and precisely going through everything that you have to go through to get where you need to get. Intelligent design is why we are having this conversation right now. It's like there is something that expresses itself with no separation through all this beautiful multiplicity, manifesting as a unicity. As we do spiritual practice, we'll have moments where we awaken and discover something transcendental. And in that moment, we experience an absence of I, an absence of limitation, which is beautiful. It's majestic. It just changes your life. And then you believe you are completely liberated and enlightened. This is most likely not the case. Profound experience like that is most likely not enough to completely eradicate the deep-rooted conditioning, vasanas, that just are way, way deeper than your conscious mind. So a lot of people, they reach a point of understanding where they feel like, oh, I have arrived somewhere. This is already a sort of spiritual ego, like the I thought, masquerading as insight, trying to call up imminent domain on your discovery. It's very subtle, and it's definitely there. Here's the problem. Our mind and our brain cannot distinguish between physical survival and survival of the ego, the self-image. They cannot. So if you were to hold your breath until you kill yourself, that would not be possible. The survival instinct will kick in and will knock you to the ground. Now you are unconscious in your breathing. So there are subtle mechanisms that play in you that sabotage you from inside if you try to hurt yourself. Most of the time. Every time you have a powerful experience, powerful realization, the ego feels threatened. And therefore, because the brain and the mind cannot distinguish between the survival of the physical body and the survival of the ego, self-image, it will kick in the survival instinct, the defense mechanisms to prevent you from damaging yourself. In this case, you're not damaging yourself. You're trying to dissolve and go beyond the ego. So a subtle mechanism comes into play to sabotage you from inside. This can manifest as someone believing that they are enlightened, that they're already there, and they stop practicing prematurely or something like that. And at the end of the day, it just shows that the ego is very capable of sabotaging your whole process. The I thought, which is another name for the ego, to be honest, it's just working under the hood. It dresses with spiritual robes sometimes, spiritual clothing, orange clothing, white clothing, monk clothing. It uses a lot of concepts. Everything you know, the ego knows. Everything you know, the ego knows. So basically, sometimes the best way is just be in a state of not knowing, because now the ego doesn't know anything. At the end of the day, just because it feels like, oh, everything is peaceful, is joyful, I have realized who I am. There's nothing missing. That may be true, but it's not an excuse to stop abiding in your own true being. In the beginning, thoughts are a huge problem. They masquerade as reality, and you believe in them, and then you suffer. So we need to create some buffer zone, some space between ourselves and thoughts, so that they don't have that emotionally charged pull that just grabs us by the neck. So that initial space is very much important. Having said so, there's a tendency in spirituality to create a sort of aversion or a war with the mind, with thoughts. And we exert so much effort trying to be in complete thoughtlessness. However, these are thoughts, and this is thoughtlessness. This is a spectrum of dualistic thoughts and no thoughts. People want to go from thoughts to the opposite, thoughtlessness, but we want to go beyond into non-duality. It's a huge difference. If you're trying to go from thoughts to no thoughts, it's going to take so much time, you'll have a hard time, you'll fight with the mind, and you will not win. If you go beyond this dualistic spectrum, eventually thoughts will come less and less, until perhaps there's no thoughts anymore, but you did not try to achieve it. Thoughts are not a problem. Problem is identification with thoughts. Thoughts can come, they can do their little talent show, as long as you don't press your buzzer. Not the buzzer that makes them go to the next stage, not the buzzer that sends them home, because both are emotional reactions to thoughts. So they come, they do the little talent show, you thank them, and they go away. No problem. Now, if you fight with thoughts, oh man, it's going to get sticky. It's like you're going to the mud, and you're going to get dirty. If you do not fight with thoughts and just try to ignore them, it doesn't work either. At the end of the day, it's like seeing the sky. You're interested in the vast blue expanse, not the passing clouds. The clouds come and go, they do whatever they want. It's like being on the sofa and your dog can be on your lap, can be on the ground, barking. Like, you just let the dog do what the dog wants to do, and you just stay as you are. So having a complete lack of resistance to the play of thoughts makes them go away much faster than if you're trying to fight them. Just like thoughts are not a problem, manifestation is not a problem. Nothing is a problem. There has to be an understanding that even though in the beginning a distance is required so that you figure out, oh, I'm not the body. Oh, I'm not the mind. Oh, I'm not anything I can perceive. After, you're like, oh, wait a second, I'm also all of these things. They're also part of me. This is remarkably, like, a remarkable discovery. It's very important, really important. Otherwise, you'll always have a certain degree of aversion. You'll always be in a sort of dualistic understanding. It's not the way. In many, many non-dual traditions, there's often an underlying stigma and perspective as it pertains to manifestation. It doesn't surprise me. Back in the day, wherever you look, for example in India, you just see misery, no strong social welfare, no proper medicine, no strong communities in terms of having the proper structures for having a good life. So you just want to get out of that place. You just want to go to Parabrahman or Shiva or something. So there's an ingrained escapism in those non-dual traditions, which inadvertently also creates a rejection towards the body. So you reject the body, you reject manifestation, you reject everything because you want to be blissful in consciousness. This is a coping mechanism, it's an escapism. It's valid as an initial step in your path, yes. But after some point you have to kind of come back down, so to speak. So there's transcendence and there's immanence. Both are important. In the end they come together and you even find that which is not beyond, not here, but not apart from both either. When we awaken to something, it's like we discover the reality of our being. But awakening is not enough. It's just the beginning. Awakening is like there's a fan going on and you unplug the fan. You've awakened to your nature, but the fan still has momentum, still has energy, so it still goes on. And if you don't continuously attend to your being and the fan is still going on, you believe that you have not unplugged it at some point and you'll pull it back in again. And now it's running all over again. Awakening does not guarantee you that you'll be enlightened or something like that. Not at all. So liberation is initially, you could say, when the fan actually stops, but liberation is actually, it doesn't matter if the fan is running or not. It can be running, it can be stopped. It doesn't make any difference. So you could put it into three phases. First, the fan is running, the ego mind is playing. You unplug it. Oh, I've never been this stuff. I've awakened to why I actually am. Second, the fan stops. I'm free from the I thought. I'm free from suffering. I'm free from all this play of the ego mind. And then you can plug it back in. You can keep it unplugged. Doesn't make any difference. Because the ego mind, the I thought, is not stronger than your true being. Its presence or absence does not obfuscate or validate your recognition and your embodiment. So even though in the beginning you needed an absence of I thought to discover you are, in the end, it doesn't make any difference because a cloud is not bigger than the sun. It can seem to cover the sun from this limited perspective, but we remove the clouds, we go to the sun. And then from the sun's perspective, who cares if there are clouds or not? It doesn't make any difference. Duality seems to be the baseline of all living beings. There's a person, a self, or entity, and there's all these objects of perception. And we are separate from them. Something feels missing, and we want to achieve that to be fulfilled. So a yearning, a desire emerges because of our sense of lack, of incompleteness. So we're all seeking fulfillment, wholeness, happiness. This is a state of duality, state of the ego, state of separateness. And living from this place, it's like living in a desert. It's inhospitable, arid. There's nothing going on, to be honest. Even the happiness that comes, fleeting happiness, is already brings the seeds for the next moment of suffering. Just a break between moments of suffering. This is not a good state for any human being to live in. You feel separate from everything. And now, non-duality is the complete opposite. Non-duality is a unity, a lack of separateness. You have no ends. You are boundless. You are limitless. How could you have any sense of lack there? No sense of lack. Nothing is missing from you. Because why? Because you are just not separate from anything. You are seamless, interwoven with reality, with the universe. Nothing is missing from you. Now, here comes the situation. When you melt away in this self completely, into a pure experience, so to speak, of non-duality, there's nothing. When you come back, when the ability to self-refer to yourself emerges, to reflect back, you say, oh, I had an absorption, I had a cessation, I was there, but I was not there. I know it now. Okay. This is a knowledge that appears only in manifestation. Non-duality is a concept only in duality. There is no non-duality in non-duality. There's only non-duality in duality. Let me repeat. There is no non-duality in non-duality. There is only non-duality in duality. Why? Because when you are truly non-dual, there's no ability to refer to yourself. So you don't know that you are non-dual because it's prior to recognition. So this shows us something it's very subtle, but it's very important, which is the interplay of duality and non-duality occur only in duality. But they are not the duality from the ego. When you get to a certain stage of understanding, maturity, insight, and realization, you start to see the interplay between the absolute reality and the relative reality, between the unmanifested and between the manifested. If they are separate, you are still in duality. You go into the absolute, you dissolve, and then you come back. Oh, I was in the absolute. There's a dichotomy, an interplay here. It stays duality. So at some point they have to come together. Having said so, imagine that an ocean is all there is, and there are all these waves, and you believe yourself to be a wave, separate from other waves. There are tall waves, small waves, big waves, large waves. And then one day you plunge deep into the ocean, you find out your non-separateness from the ocean. You are the whole ocean. You've always been the whole ocean. Now, you still are a wave, but you embody the knowledge of being the whole. That's like the natural state. When you actually even melt away your sense of boundaries and you realize, oh, I've always been the ocean. I've never been a wave. Okay, that's the universal state. But when you go even deeper into unmanifested water, let's call it H2O, it's like, oh, I'm the absolute. I'm the lightless light. I'm the ocean. I'm a wave. But ultimately, I'm unmanifested water, H2O. You will say, from the perspective of the H2O, that there has never been any wave. There's never been any ocean. At some point, I realized that I was the ocean and the waves. But now I see I've just been H2O. I've never been the wave in the ocean. From the perspective of the ocean and the wave, it seems to be a duality because there's a wave in the ocean. But from the perspective of H2O, it's purely non-dual. There's no two things. Now, Advaita, from its pinnacle, if you have this understanding, it will superimpose itself on top of your perceptions and the way you experience reality. And you will say that there are no people, no teachings, no one has ever spoken a word, nothing to do, nothing to learn. Why? Because you are referring to the absolute. And of course, in the absolute, there's nothing to do, there's no people. Yes, that's true. But you are speaking. What about that? If you're speaking, maybe something is happening. Even if it's in a dream, dreamt by no one. So, the understanding of non-dual duality shows you that there is no absolute and relative separate from each other. they are together as one. The absolute is recognized only in the relative. When you are in the absolute, you don't recognize it because it's prior to recognition. So even the knowledge of the absolute requires the relative. So the relative, which was seen as false or really low important in awareness, or even the absolute was seen as really transcendently important, now they're more balanced. Well, wait a second. I can only recognize this stuff here. So maybe they are both equally important. They come together. So the dance of the non-manifest or unmanifested and manifestation come together. Awareness and form, they dance beautifully. In that sense, you understand that non-duality has never been separate from duality. But it's not duality, like the ego. So non-dual duality. When attention turns back into itself, the first thing you'll recognize is, oh, there's something different here. For the first time, you're not going to objectivity, to objects. So there will be an innate knowing of self-awareness in you, like you just know. You know it on a level beyond the mind, completely beyond the mind. And it's not something you can doubt. You just know it. How will the mind, how will your vehicle translate that? Usually is that as a sense of spaciousness, a sense of emptiness, a sense of well-being or tranquility, or just a sort of like innate knowingness beyond the mind. It's as if you're recognizing yourself beyond thoughts for the first time. You used to refer to yourself as an object, as an ego, as a person, and now you're finding your subjectivity, who you truly are. When you tap into it, there's an undeniability of having touched something that has never been affected by anything, that does not age, does not die, was not born. That innate knowingness that cannot be conveyed through words is the first type of recognition that usually seekers have. And then, as they marinate and get acquainted with that, it starts to radiate as a sense of space, weightlessness, lightness, subtle delightfulness that then can become joy or bliss, a sort of love, which are very important fundamental qualities, because even when you recognize yourself, then the mind will come and will just push your attention away. But if you have a sense of well-being, a sense of love and joy, it will be much easier to marinate and rest on yourself than if it's just dry, empty self-awareness. So let me just rephrase. In the beginning, when you turn the arrow of attention back to yourself, you first recognize with no doubts your being, which is a knowledge beyond knowledge. It's a wisdom beyond the mind. It's not transcribable or translatable by the mind. You just know it. Undeniability. This is a good word for it. You know it. Then it starts to manifest as space, silence, weightless, delightfulness. Perhaps very subtle in the beginning, but as the clouds start to dissipate, it becomes more palpable over time. So that's a good sign. When there's a discontinuity in the flow of consciousness, it's an important moment, because it shows you for the first time what it is to be without a self, without the mind, complete absence of all the familiar territory of living from the ego mind. It's a gap, gapless gap. It's like deep sleep, but conscious deep sleep. When you recognize that discontinuity, you cannot rest on it because there's no one to rest on it. You cannot pay attention to it because there's no one to pay attention to it. You have to contemplate first when you come back. Who came back? How do you know that something or someone came back? Were you in that gap? Sure you were, otherwise you would not know it. But who were you that was in that gap? What made you come back? Did you really come back, or did a thought come back and you got convinced by the thought that you came back? When you have these types of recognitions and experiences, the most important thing to do is to inquire and contemplate the exit process of discontinuity, of a cessation, of an absorption, of that gap. even of things like Nirvikalpa Samadhi or Nirada Samapatti from Buddhist traditions, you will see that the one who came back was never present in cessation or in discontinuity or in the gap, and is present now. But that one is a thought, it's an object. And now the only difference is you're identifying with it. So I would say inquiry and contemplation, most important things to do in this situation. You cannot rest on it. You cannot pay attention to it because there's no one to pay attention there. But also there's a third and absolutely undeniably essential component, which is surrender. You cannot will yourself into one of those gaps, one of those discontinuities, into an absorption like that. You just cannot do it. It's just by surrender. It's like I tell you, try as hard as you can to fall asleep. It's not going to happen. How do you fall asleep? Let go. You surrender, you drop. So to have these types of absorptions, these types of deep samadhis, these types of deep, undeniable discontinuities from the flow of consciousness, you need unconditional surrender. If an iceberg is 10% above the water and 90% below the surface, and I tell the iceberg, please surrender, the iceberg is just going to surrender 10% because that's all it knows. So what do you need? You need to first recognize yourself below the surface, slightly uplift yourself to the surface to melt to the sun of consciousness, sun of awareness. And then you can surrender unconditionally. When you have that type of surrender, these experienceless experiences become possible, which is an absolute absorption, let's say. Absorption into complete dissolution of everything. But then something will come back or seem to come back, and that's where you have to pay attention and explore and inquire. This type of non-dual sadhana does not require any sort of imagination. It does not require the use of the mind for anything. No. You have to let go of everything. Let go of imagination, letting go of the mind, letting go of the one who wants to surrender, letting go of effort, letting go of effortlessness, letting go of letting go. It's like consciously dying while remaining alive. It's not being afraid of facing existential death, even though you'll not literally die. It's about going to the depths of a dimensionless dimension you've always been, but you don't know. It's not afraid of going into the complete unknown. It's to be able to plunge without knowing what you're plunging into and yet not being afraid. It's not about imagining anything. It's just about something completely unimaginable. It's not just unimaginable, it's unthinkable. It's inconceivable, undefinable. The type of surrender which is required, not something anyone can just conjure like that. No. It requires the discovery of yourself as awareness, the discovery of yourself through the heart, an initial surrender of personhood so that you can recognize yourself as being, as awareness in the I am. It requires an acquaintance with the I am until it becomes a natural state of being. It requires a slight dissipation of physical boundaries most of the time so that you are not so entangled or localized here. And then finally, perhaps you can, for the first time, truly let go. However, I want to point out something. When you go to sleep at night, you go into this discontinuity every night in deep sleep, every night, but you do it unconsciously. Now you have to do it consciously, and that's the difference. For a human being, our experience, you could say there's three states. The waking state, here, where we perceive all these objects, all this stuff. Dream state, which happens when you lose body awareness and your mind creates a dream body, a dream universe, usually at night when you sleep, which is, it resembles this very much. Same type of perceptions. You could say, oh, it's not as realistic. That's not true. It could be even more realistic than here. If you've done lucid dreaming or dream yoga, you'll know that. And then there's the third one, which is deep sleep. A deep, dreamless sleep, where there's nothing. It's like general anesthesia or so-called unconscious states. There's also a fourth one called Turiya. Although you will see that the Turiya state is actually not a state, but you could say it underlies all the other three states. Turiya is not like a fourth part of something that already had three parts. No. Basically, it's the following. There's a white empty canvas, and on that canvas something appears. Waking state, you identify with the person, objects. Dream state, you identify with the person, objects, and when both of these are not present, you call it deep sleep, because you don't identify, there's nothing there, you cannot identify with anything. Turiya is when you first recognize yourself without needing any objects. It's like conscious deep sleep, so to speak. That's also the discovery of the absolute. Now, the thing with Turiya is how you embody that insight, that discovery. Turiya is basically the degree of embodiment of your discovery, of your insight, of your realization. And you could say there are different levels of Turiya. For example, someone who has discovered the nature of awareness and has a fundamental state of well-being that is with them regardless of external circumstances, wherever they go, you could say it's like an initial level of Turiya. That's great. And it can happen, but it doesn't, they aren't shaken. Nothing shakes them out of that recognition. It's beautiful. But there are even deeper levels of Turiya, deeper levels of embodiment. So Turiya is basically the ability or the effortless radiance of your vehicle of expression as it radiates and embodies your discoveries and insights. I want to point out something, which is Turiya appears to be the fourth state, but when you are in Turiya, there's no fourth states, otherwise it would be highly dualistic. So in Turiya, Turiya becomes Turiyatita at that moment, beyond the fourth. So Turiya is itself Turiyatita. Although, from a perspective of waking state, we can say that Turiya and Turiyatita are different, which is valid. When you are in Turiya, you are not on the fourth in comparison to the three states. In Turiya, you are already in Turiyatita, already beyond all the four initial states, so to speak. Who am I? I'm grace. I'm the universe. I'm reality. I'm not a person. I've never been a person, but I express myself through this body-mind, through this vehicle, with all its virtues and flaws. But inherently, I express myself through here, but make no mistake, believing that I am a person here. A householder and a monk who are free, even though their expression may be slightly different, of course, because of their conditions, it's the same intelligence, it's the same grace, it's the same universal force that runs through their body minds. There is a, let's say, an idea that someone who is free is completely devoid of life's ups and downs, or would rather live in a cave, or cannot have children, cannot be married or something, which is entirely false. Living from Turiya, Turiyatita, liberation, enlightenment, whatever you wish to call it, and having a family gives so much more juice to life, to the expression. It's remarkably important. Most spiritual teachers began their journey by separation, by leaving something behind. Family, the wife, the husband, children. Many of the past did so. For me, not just that was not an option, that was not something that even occurred to me. Why? why would I start my journey by choosing separation instead of love, which is the expression of unity? Having a family, having a child, having someone by your side made my journey much more efficient, much richer, much more beautiful. And if it were not for them, I probably wouldn't be here. So they were vital, absolutely vital for my path. You don't have to become a monk. You don't have to live in a cave. You don't have to be ascetic. You don't even have to fast. You don't have to be like the saints of the past, which I hold dearly in my heart, and I'm so thankful for them. We stand on the shoulders of these past giants. Having said so, spirituality doesn't have to be stuck on the past. It can move forward, it can expand, it can grow, it can adapt to new circumstances and realities. If I go into the cave like Ramana Maharshi, first, I'm not in South India, so I would have to bring more clothes for sure. Cannot just bring like a cloth. Second, if I go on the street, ask for food, I'll be seen as a homeless person, and probably the police will come and detain me or something. Or if I live in a forest and I have to light up fire, that's dangerous. It just doesn't work in today's society. Not just that, but having a child puts you, and a family puts you in situations which otherwise you'd never experience, which makes you embody your insights and awakenings much more efficiently, in a much deeper and richer way. I find this to be very, very important. You cannot shield yourself from life. You have to allow life to come through you. I don't see myself as a monk or as a householder, as nothing like that. No, it's how it is. It's how things flow. It's how it has been. And I'm extremely grateful it has been that way. Sometimes we believe, oh man, this job or this child or this situation is holding me back. That would be arrogant, because you'd be proclaiming that you know better than the universe how things should be in this moment. That would be a rejection of the present moment. It would imply lack of surrender, perhaps lack of understanding. This is not a call to accept mediocrity, but it's a call to see each situation and reframe it as an opportunity for recognition and for embodiment. And if you have a family, there's no better way than that. Witness is an important teaching because in the beginning it allows you to observe everything that you're not. Just stay in the witness, that which observes. And therefore, you observe thoughts, you observe emotions, sensations, images, and if you perceive them, that's not who you are. So remaining in the witness becomes an important teaching to create spaciousness, to create some buffer zone between yourself and everything that you are not. So initially, that's important. Background witness, separate from the foreground objects of perception. And you can say, oh, this is myself. This is a self. But not a big fan of that because that's still slightly dualistic. So the self, you could say it's awareness, and awareness does not witness anything. Awareness witnesses itself, if you like to say it. Awareness is aware of awareness, if you like to say it. It's aware of itself. It's self-awareness. You could say awareness is aware of its own modulations, but if it's witnessing something, there's already first, there's space, there's time, there's duality. So the self and witness are different, but witness is an important teaching to create spaciousness between yourself and that which you initially need to create space from, such as thoughts and emotions and so on. But self, the true self is awareness, and awareness is not a witness. Devotion and self-inquiry, they come together. If you separate them, that's not the way. They come together. Self-inquiry is about finding out the source of the I thoughts, if you go according to Ramana's teachings. Self-inquiry is about finding who you actually are beyond form, beyond the mind, and so on. So devotion is loving who you are. non-dual devotion. Non-dual bhakti is having devotion for your own being, for your own awareness. So one of my favorite instructions is not to do self-inquiry, is to do devotional self-inquiry, which means instead of just looking back and finding yourself as awareness, you look back, you find yourself as awareness, and then you develop devotion and love for that which you are. That makes it much stronger, much, much stronger. So devotion and self-inquiry, the bhakti and the jnana path, they come together. Many seekers are just looking for coping mechanisms, escapisms, reliefs. But spirituality is not an escape drug. Not at all. That would just mean that you do not really understand spirituality or duality or the path. You're just looking to get out of suffering. And that's perfectly acceptable because if your life is very heavy, if you're depressed, at that moment you just want to get out of that hole. You don't care about enlightenment or liberation. No, you just want a relief from this moment. Why? Because if there's a huge mist and you cannot see your way, you just say, I just want to get out of the mist first. So it's valid. Just want some degree of relief or coping with the situation. But once you have that clarity, now you should turn back to where it matters the most, to the path, to yourself, to your true being. If you've been carrying a backpack for so much time, and then you take it out, you feel so relieved. And oh, this is beautiful. This is amazing. But all these people that they have been lived without backpack for many years, for them it's natural, it's normal. So your dropping of the weight gives you a sense of peace. Of course, because you were carrying something very heavy. But that's not enlightenment, that's not liberation, that's not nirvana, nothing like that, no. That's just a fleeting moment of relief between more sorrows, between more turbulence, between more suffering. So no one should ever mistake a fleeting moment, a momentarily release of pressure, of tension, of weight, of the ego mechanism. Manolaya. No one should mistake that for manonasa, going beyond the mind, letting go of the mind once and for all, going beyond the ego. True peace is something that lasts, doesn't end. If it's something momentarily, it just has the seeds for more suffering. It's valid, but not enough. A seeker who is truly, truly ready for liberation, those are rare ones. And they have an unshakable. These are beautiful beings because there's such a strong power in their hearts that comes forth and manifests as an unwavering yearning for something beyond the mundane, beyond what society offers, beyond all this stuff that we can perceive and construct narratives about. A true, genuine seeker has very good heart, is authentic, and never allows that flame in their hearts to cool down and disappear and extinguish. That flame will continue to burn regardless of obstacles, regardless of circumstances. A genuine seeker has no plan B.
Good, full stop.
Falling into the self is a good expression because it doesn't imply moving towards something, reaching towards something, applying effort towards something, but rather dropping, a surrender, a letting go, a falling, so to speak. Just like when you go to sleep and you fall asleep, you can also fall awaken, which is falling into the self. Falling into the self basically means that you let go, just like a baby lets go into the arms of their mother, completely surrendered, completely trusting the benevolence and the lap and the arms and the lullaby of their mother. In the same way, you trust the flow of life. You surrender to grace and you just fall and fall. Whatever can fall, falls. Falling into the self is a dropping into being. Surrender is never upward. You don't surrender upward. When you exhale, it's always down. Surrender is down, so to speak. Falling into the self is a good expression for that. It's not what you think. Liberation is not what you think. Liberation is not something that can be adequately described or translated. But we can use words that go close to it, so to speak, but they're never liberation, because language was not designed to be able to explain the subtleties of reality. Liberation is unconditional freedom, unconditional happiness, unconditional peace, unconditional love, unconditional wisdom, and it is beyond all of those. And at the same time, allows you to experience the whole emotional dynamics of being a human. Liberation is your highest peak being your baseline, and yet at the same time, completely grounded, completely present, not spaced out. Liberation is freedom from everything. It is freedom from suffering once and for all. It is freedom from restless thoughts, emotions. Liberation is even free from liberation, by the way. You are free. It cannot be adequately described through words. But if I have to say it, it's like the fragrance of a rose, the chirping of a bird, the sunrise, the sunset, an aurora. It's like a kid laughing, lovers kissing, the wave arriving at the shore, snow falling, dancing, silence, beauty, sound. Liberation and a family life are undoubtedly compatible. If you truly want liberation, let me tell you, there's nothing that can mean an impossibility. There's no hindrance too big, no blockage too big, not too many kids, not too few kids, not partner, no partner. Like, that stuff doesn't make any difference, to be honest. No. The difference is how you use those situations as trampolines to go beyond limitations. My wife was and is my biggest teacher, biggest companion, and she was very important and fundamental in my path. Without her, probably wouldn't be here. Having a relationship like that allows you to point each other ego's flaws, ego reactions, blind spots. If you are by yourself, you cannot see them. Is it easy? Not at all. It's very difficult because you don't want the person you love the most to be pointing your ego reactions, your flaws. But along my path many years ago, that was exactly what was required, both for me and for her. It's like living 24/7 with a teacher, both for myself and for her. And in that way, there is no ceiling to your potential. It's like you press the karmic accelerating button, and whatever would take lifetimes, lifetimes of hills are compacted into an Everest. But if you go through it, you've done what would take millions of lifetimes in some years. If all you want is liberation, because you understand that there is nothing else in the world that will ultimately fulfill you, you have to ask yourself, are my actions, is my daily life, is what I do congruent with my desire, with my yearning? What I do on an everyday basis, does that manifest and exemplify my yearning for liberation or not? It's a very important question to ask. Am I giving it my all? Is there space for more surrender? Am I enjoying the experience of being alive right now? If liberation is your goal, drop plan Bs. If liberation is your goal, there are no other goals as important as liberation. If liberation is your goal, tell your emotional body, your physical body, your mind, your energy, allow them to be soaked in that yearning so that they also come from that yearning and not from past conditioning. If liberation is your goal, you are the luckiest human being alive. Because I look around and it's no one's goal. No one cares about liberation. So if liberation is what you want, my God, aren't you a special being? My God, aren't you blessed? You know how rare it is to be a human being? You know how rare it is to be a human being on a spiritual path? And you know how rare it is to be a human being on a spiritual path that desires liberation in the actual non-dual path? Lottery? This is the cosmic lottery. Very blessed. Seize that opportunity. Liberation is possible for everyone without any doubts whatsoever. Anyone. If you have good heart, if you are honest with yourself, if you are willing to surrender, liberation is possible for you. Liberation is not for the chosen ones. No, not at all. Anyone can be free. There's nothing special in me or anyone like that that you do not have. No, not at all. Anyone can be liberated, definitely. Does everyone have the required surrender? That's a better question. Does anyone have that powerful flame that will burn through countless hindrances and obstacles? That's a better question. The question is not, is liberation for everyone? Is, do you truly want liberation? If you truly want liberation, liberation is possible. If you do not truly want liberation, just a fever dream. Most people sleepwalk through their lives. They are looking for the next best thing. They want more money, or they want to go on vacations, and they want the perfect body or the perfect partner or whatever they want. It seems to bring them a sense of fulfillment, but then it's very fleeting and it goes away. And then they want the next best thing. So they're not living, they're just going through the motions. They're just surviving. They're just sleepwalking through life. They do not know that liberation is even possible because they have absolutely no concept or even like any type of understanding that there is something beyond what meets the eye. This is the normal state of all human beings. It's called ignorance. They just don't know. If they just stopped for a second, for example, I wanted badly that promotion at work. They got them. They felt happy. How long did it last? Not much. Did you really want that promotion at work, or did you want something else? Oh, I want a bigger house. They got a bigger house. It's nice for a while, and then it goes away again. That satisfaction, feeling that wholeness. Did you really want that house, or did you want something else? Like wherever you get, it seems to bring you a happiness and fulfillment, and then it goes away. Why? Because you need something else, or because in that moment that you got something that you wanted, you felt desireless. You felt complete. You were not seeking anymore. This is the better question. What is exactly what you want, and why do you want it? So most people don't ask this question, because if they did, they would say, oh, it's not that I want more money or perfect partner or perfect vacation. No. What I want is fulfillment and happiness. That's what I want. If fulfillment and happiness were in money or vacations or the partner, then anyone who had those things, they would be perfectly fulfilled and happy. And I don't know if you know, but they're not. Richest people in the world, most of them are kind of miserable, to be honest. You go on vacation, it's beautiful. You come back, you're depressed. If you live in the place where you go on vacations, after a while it kind of subsides, the effervescence of being there. It's not on that place. So what is it? What you want is happiness and fulfillment. If happiness and fulfillment is not in things, because otherwise anyone who had those things would feel it and have it, and they don't, then where is it? It's in you. You can experience a sense of happiness and fulfillment in a dream, but nothing is happening. Where did it come from? It's in you. If it's in you, instead of turning back to objects, why about turning back to yourself, to the eye? If having that beautiful sports car gave you a sense of fulfillment and happiness, you have to ask yourself, what about this car is giving me that fulfillment and happiness? Does it give to everyone else? Because for that car to be the source of happiness and fulfillment, it have to be the same for everyone else. Anyone who had that car, or anyone who didn't have that car, should feel the same. And I'm telling you, there are other people who probably would dislike that car very much. So it's not in the car, otherwise it have to be for everyone. What does it mean? It's in you. You can be watching like a football game or something, and your team scores, and you're still happy, and your friend is miserable because it's from the opposing team. Is the happiness in the goal, in the team? No, it's in you. If you bump with your head and have amnesia, and your team scores, now you don't celebrate because you don't remember liking that team anymore. It was never in that team in the first place. It has always been in you. So you should look at yourself, at the eye, not anything else. But because most people are just sleepwalking, they don't take any moment. There's not even a second that they take to contemplate what they want, why they want it, and where they can find it. They're like zombies. That's the state of the world for most people. Enlightenment or liberation is not about adding anything whatsoever. Not at all. Because that would mean that something is missing that you bring, but if you bring something, if you add something, then it can go away. Anything that comes can go. And if it comes and goes, and it's not worth it. Liberation is not a game of addition, of accumulating, of adding more. even though that's what society tells us that success is. Having more, having more. Liberation is unlearning, undoing, letting go. It's not about adding, it's about dropping, letting go, seeing what's beneath all these layers of conceptualization and emotions and identifications and narratives. It's never, ever about bringing something in, but about finding what is already present. Turiya and liberation are not the same. Turiya is mostly the level of embodiment of your insights, and liberation is freedom. So at the pinnacle, you have to understand that Turiya is a concept that points to something. But it's still defining, it's still affirming. It's like you go into a shop and there's nothing there. And you ask the clerk, okay, I want to buy something, what do you have? And he says, I don't have anything. And you say, okay, I want that. So you are affirming, you are defining something. But liberation is non-affirming, non-definable. So you could say it's a little subtler and a better expression of the truth than the word Turiya. There is a post-awakening sadhana. There is no post-liberation sadhana. In liberation, you can do sadhana if you want. It doesn't change anything. You're free. But in awakening, you need to do non-dual sadhana so that those parts of yourself that are still being informed by past conditioning instead of by your discovery, they get soaked into that understanding, deeper understanding. So non-dual sadhana is required under those circumstances. But on liberation, your breath is sadhana, effortless sadhana. Your heartbeat is effortless sadhana. Your voice is effortless sadhana. Your life is effortless sadhana. In that point, you don't do sadhana, non-dual sadhana. You are a living sadhana.